Hi, my name is Dan Levinson Wilk. I teach American history at the Fashion Institute of Technology, State University of New York. I'm really glad to be here at the BHC with a few of my colleagues. We're actually all presenting together, so I hope you check out their videos as well. Kyung-hee Pyun, Karen Trevette, and Eric Daniels. All of us are part of a project that's been going on for a few years now, an NEH-sponsored project to create more curriculum to teach art and design students the business and labor history of their fields, more about the history of capitalism. And we've come to tell you a little bit about our project and what we've been doing. We've created some curriculum. We've created a website that I will show to you. Give me just a second. This is our website. And we've created a conference that's going to be happening on April 8th and 9th, just coming up next. So if you want to find more about our conference and you want to join us, go to businesshistory.fitnyc.edu. Today, though, I want to be talking about extracurricular commemoration, a phrase that I've been using to describe one of the ways that we've been trying to teach our students more about business and especially labor history in the fields that they're going into. So first, I'll start with this definition. What is extracurricular commemoration? I've defined it as sustained engagement over time in a multifaceted project sponsored by an educational institution, conducted partially or largely outside the classroom, to learn about and commemorate an event of importance to the community within and beyond the walls of that educational institution. And the point here is that we found that we don't have enough space in the curriculum itself to teach our students everything that we want them to know. So we're going outside of the curriculum as well to do some extracurricular projects. And at FIT, the big project we've been working on for over a decade now is to commemorate the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory Fire. Now, I don't have to tell you all about the fire. I don't have to tell you how to teach the fire either. I imagine that many of you teach about the fire in your classes. But I want to tell you a little bit about what we've done to move beyond the classroom, to teach about the business and labor history of the fire, to give them a sense of why it's important to learn about these things, to give them a sense that they too are workers. Artists and designers are workers, although often they don't think of themselves that way. And to think about how they interact with other workers further down the supply chain, the people who maybe manufacture the designs that they're going to create. So there's various different things that you can do if you want to create an extracurricular commemoration. These are some general rules that we've come up with. Pick an event that people already know about, but maybe should remember better. Commemorate that event on and around campus in many ways over many years, and the sustained effort has been very important to us. Invite students, staff, faculty, and administrators to participate. It's been so important to us to have that contribution across these different categories, collaborations that often don't happen on campus. Also invite targeted populations of the general public. When you are engaging your students, give class credit or extra credit to the students for participation in or attendance at events to get a little more enthusiasm for them, get some more people sitting in those seats. Partner with nonprofits related to the event you have chosen, and especially if you can, partner with a labor union, hopefully your own labor union, to work on these events. We are very lucky at the Fashion Institute of Technology to have a labor union that represents all of our faculty and staff. It's called the United College Employees of FIT. It's actually one of the oldest unions of higher education in the country. We think maybe the second or third. It dates back to the 1960s. So there's a lot of different things that we've done at FIT to commemorate the Triangle Fire in and out of the classroom. And it really started leading up to the 100th anniversary in 2011. Some of the things that we did involved just class assignments, stuff that we actually did in the classroom. So I'll show you some artwork that some of my students made in my classes around the anniversary, the centennial of the fire. This is a painting by Eric Devlin, one of my students from back then. You'll notice that the face is marked up with hash marks. There's actually 147 of them, or 146. I always get that number wrong. The number of people who died in the fire. And in the background, there's a collage of newspaper articles about the fire that he has painted over to create the figure and the building behind him, or behind the figure. And this is a piece that was done by Dami Huang. $3 per a week was the title she gave. She was a Korean student, and she took some money and put it in a hand and covered it with what looked like blood. We also did a lot of extracurricular events that year. We held 5 panel discussions on various topics that were related to the Triangle Fire, to women's rights, to labor rights, to a housing project across the street from us at FIT that's called Penn South, which was built to house garment workers and has had a very illustrious career since then, housing radicals of all sorts. We did a project where we chalked the names of the victims of the fire on the sidewalk in front of our building. We held a conference in conjunction with an organization. We held a couple of art exhibits, and we tried to teach across the curriculum. So I'll show you some other stuff that was actually from the curriculum that was not extracurricular. This was a project that was created by a class taught by a professor named Ann Kong in the exhibition design major. They created a huge exhibition in one of our lobbies, which thought about the history of the fire. And so you see some of the image in here, a figure falling from the building, a dress which is sort of designed with different images related to the fire, a newspaper article related to the fire. And then in another class taught by illustration professor Melanie Ream, a bunch of students created illustrations that had been inspired by the fire. Here's one by Jennifer Mertz, who's actually a children's book artist and writer who has come out recently with a couple of books related to the history of the Triangle Fire. And another image by student Min Suk Choi, which is sort of a piece of a comic book about the Triangle Fire. So that's what we did in 2011. I think this exhibit actually went up in 2012, Melanie Ream's exhibit. And then after that, I had planned for that to be that. But I got involved with an organization called the Remember the Triangle Fire Coalition that decided it was time to do more. And in the decades since, we've been working on building a memorial to the fire on the building itself, a sort of vertical memorial that runs up the spine of the building. And that inspired me to continue to do a lot of other things on campus. So over the last decade, we've continued to have various different talks and conferences, which always lead us back to the Triangle Fire in one way or another. We've also continued to chalk the names of the victims. The Merchandising Society, a club of students at FIT that's mostly students in the fashion business management major, have been in charge of that project every year ever since. And about 4 years ago, we actually stopped chalking because there was a construction project where we usually do it and moved to Instagram. And we've stayed on Instagram ever since. Every year, students have designed different pages related to the victims of the fire and posted them on Instagram. So we've done all sorts of things, but probably the most exciting thing we've done is related to that memorial that is being built on the building. It's a design that runs metal bands up the spine of the building and then around the base, on which the names of all of the victims have been cut out on one panel. And then on a panel below, there's a reflectiveness so that the light that shines through the cutout letters will then reflect the color of the sky on the panel below. But there was some concern about the vertical panel, that it would maybe be too reflective and shine the light into the apartments of the building across the street. And the artists Uri Wegman and Richard Jun Yu, who created this memorial, thought a lot about how to dull the reflectivity and came up with an aspect of the memorial that they called the collective ribbon. And the idea was that people would come together and bring swatches of fabric that were somehow personally meaningful to them. Sew all of those pieces of fabric together in one incredibly long ribbon of fabric, and then that fabric would be scanned, cast in metal, and that would become the vertical element. And the texture of all of that fabric would then dull the reflectivity a little bit. But it also made the memorial a little more interactive, a little more democratic in the way it was being created. And so the collective ribbon was sewn in many different places, but the two largest events at which we brought people in to sew the pieces together happened at FIT. And I want to show you some pictures of that event. Here are people who came together to sew meaningful swatches of fabric. Some, as you see, had images on them. Here's a picture from above where you can see 4 of the 5 rows of tables on which the collective ribbon was assembled. You can also see a stage. We had lots of events during this larger event. We had readings, we had screenings of movies from the era, we had music. Some people from the New York Philharmonic actually came and performed a piece of an orchestral piece called Fire in My Mouth, which was created by Julia Wolf to commemorate the Triangle Fire victims. This is what a detail of the collective ribbon looked like when it was sewn together. And here's a simulation of what it will look like when it is finally cast in metal. It hasn't quite happened yet, but it will soon. So those are the sorts of things that we've been doing and that we will continue to work on through this time. Let me try to stop sharing my screen so that you can see me again. Hello. And so it's been important to us as a way of getting students engaged with the Triangle Fire and thinking about events that have happened more recently, especially the fires and building collapses that we've seen in Bangladesh in recent years in the garment industry. And also just to think of their significant role as both workers and possibly managers in the future, to think about what responsibility they have to make sure that workplaces are safe, that workers are treated fairly and with respect. And conversations have continually come out of both in-class and extracurricular events that really, I think, have made students more thoughtful about all those issues. I recommend this process. I think that every school, especially every art and design program, should find some analogous event that they can use to get their students to think through all of these issues. And what's been most important to me about these projects is how they've built on themselves. Over more than a decade, we've continued to engage with the memory of this one event, and it's become more and more meaningful over time. So maybe you all at your schools will think of other events that can inspire you to do the same sort of thing. Thanks for listening. I hope that you go check out all of the videos by my colleagues, Kyung-Hee Pyun, Karen Trevette, and Eric Daniels. And maybe I'll see you at the discussion of this event during the conference itself. Be well. Bye-bye.